on to episode 3, and to all the people that were just saying, oh, come on, it'll get better as it goes along, this wasn't any better, obviously. So I guess we'll just jump right into it, because I already did all the exposition dump in the first episode, so there's no reason to repeat myself here. So, in this episode, literally not much happens. They leave for their quest, they get accosted by the Furies, 2 of them instead of 3 this time, and they go to Medusa's place and kill her. That about sums up this entire episode, but boy do I have problems. So, something I did mention in the last episode is that Chiron's entire plan was absolute bullshit, because he's just sending a guy who knows virtually nothing about this world on a quest to retrieve the bolt from the underworld that he's not even 100% sure is there. And someone pointed out that in the book that this was mostly due to the prophecy. And that was a very good point, because the prophecy was missing. But it is here. It's in fact the first thing that happens in this episode. But for some reason, instead of the Oracle saying anything, it wakes up. It doesn't give the whole "I'm the spirit of Delphi" speech from the book. Even the movie did that. But it just emits some green smoke, and Gabe shows up and recites the prophecy. Why? What was the point of this? And then later, and it cuts the prophecy in half, kind of. It shows the first 2 lines, and then it shows him choosing Annabeth and Grover, and then it cuts back to the second half of this prophecy. I guess because he goes to talk to Grover, and Grover's asking, why are you picking me? And then it comes to, you shall be betrayed by the one who calls you friend. And I guess that's supposed to say that Percy trusts him enough not to betray him, and that is what he says later on. And we'll get back to that in a little bit, because I'm going to go through this chronologically, because apparently there are some people that are relying on my reviews to know what's happening in the show, so we're going to do it that way. So Luke gives him the flying shoes, and by the way, the wings look fucking atrocious. They look fake as hell. Like, the CGI when they like morph into wings looks really bad, and then when they're on there, they're probably CGI, and if they're not, that is a horrendous looking practical effect. And something else this show kept up from the last 2 is the cutting to black. Now, it's not as egregious as the last episode, especially the second episode had a particular problem with this, where it did it every other scene. This one only does it a couple of times, but it's still annoying. They don't understand how transitions work still, apparently. And, oh yeah, he chooses Annabeth to go on this quest instead of her basically joining. And they explain later that because of the line from the prophecy that he feels like he and Annabeth would never be friends, so she wouldn't be the one in the prophecy that betrayed him. And that's some flimsy-ass logic, because if you guys would never be friends, that is honestly more proof that she would betray you. Percy even said that he was considering Luke to go with him, and that would have been a much better choice, especially because Annabeth's character is awful here. And I want to talk about something that I saw very recently, I want to say almost right after I saw the 3rd episode. I saw a comment showed up on my last video on the first 2 episodes saying that somebody had said to him, defending the Annabeth casting, that since the book was trying to subvert the dumb blonde stereotype, maybe Riordan was trying to subvert the angry black girl stereotype. And, like, in a nutshell, that wouldn't be that bad of a theory for a defense. It's still piss weak and doesn't excuse the choice. But because that is a modern stereotype in Hollywood. Hell, I can just point at Stranger Things, one of the most popular television series of the last 20 years, and they had that. But he didn't subvert that stereotype in the slightest, because Annabeth is just bitchy throughout this entire episode. She spends the entire episode yelling at Percy and Grover, being completely full of herself, and being a complete dick to Percy for no reason. and always acting like she has the moral high ground and is smarter than them. They're trying to do the thing that the Harry Potter's movie did that I hated, where they made Harry and Ron even dumber than in the book so that Hermione could look even smarter than them. They're trying to do the same thing here, because Percy's a fucking dumbass in this show. He is a 100% moron. And, so we'll get back to that in a little bit. But next, Alecto shows up on the bus, and Annabeth, using her cap, actually talks to Alecto. Why? I don't know. Alecto offers her, in exchange, she gives up Percy and Grover. I don't remember what she was going to give Annabeth. I really don't know. But obviously they escape the bus. They don't even fight them. Annabeth kills one of the Furies, and then they escape Alecto. And like I said, there's only 2 here instead of 3, which is really odd. Percy doesn't even take out his sword. And by the way, he's carrying the box with Luke's shoes in them instead of, taking them out of the box and putting them in his backpack like his much smarter movie counterpart did. Instead of carrying this big-ass box around under his arm, it looks silly. And speaking of that scene, while, Annabeth is inside the place and talking to Alecto and everything, or before that, Grover is doing, it's nothing but, you barely hear there's nothing going on, and it's just Grover with a voiceover explaining exposition to Percy. I'm so sick of this, because this is why authors shouldn't be screenwriters, because they don't know how to write it. Riordan just sees this exposition as, this is how I explained it in the book, so this is how we're going to explain it here, failing to see the difference in the medium. And again, there's so many people that bitch about the movie cutting shit for time, but whenever the show makes changes or cuts things for time constraints, they go, it's the different medium, which is one of the most double standard bullshit, some of the most double standard bullshit I've ever heard. But even still, he fails to understand the medium by just writing this like a novel, and that's not how the film medium works. So anyway, they end up at Auntie M's Garden Emporium, refusing to acknowledge that Annabeth has dyslexia as well. That was a big point in that book, where Annabeth couldn't read the sign either, where Percy kind of remembered, it's like, oh shit, she's smart, but oh yeah, she is dyslexia as well. She's just able to read it just fine. She's able to read the sign perfectly fine. And they change a lot with this. And again, had this part been changed this much in the movie, people would have thrown a hissy fit, but people are sucking off to this show because Riordan wrote it this way. And it's not any better. They're being chased by Alecto, and Alecto stays outside because she's afraid of Medusa. Yeah, they don't kill her on the bus. And she offers Percy, Grover, and Annabeth to come in. And this is where things get weird with Medusa. Now, Medusa is the biggest problem with this episode. And honestly, unlike most of the characters, it wasn't the casting. Now, I thought Jessica Parker Kennedy was a weird choice originally because, and this isn't her fault, but she looks and sounds like a teenager. Again, it's not her fault, but that's just how it is. There's a lot of actors in Hollywood where it's hard to take them seriously because they look and sound a lot younger than they are. I think Kennedy's actually in her mid-30s, maybe late 30s or close to, and she still looks and sounds like she's 20. But that's not her fault, and her acting was fine. She's one of the few people in this show that have actually given a somewhat decent performance. And she makes a big deal about the fact because Annabeth obviously doesn't want to go in because she has beef with her mother. But Medusa makes this whole thing about how we're not our parents and all that other stuff, which completely is, the antithesis of what was going on in the book. The same thing happened with Gabe and Dionysus. How does Riordan keep screwing up his own characters? Well, they're technically not his own characters, but he keeps screwing them up. So, and also, they don't have to figure out that it's Medusa. They don't go into Auntie M's and then eventually slowly figure out it's Medusa. Soon as they show up at the place, they know it's Medusa. Because, God forbid, we have some suspense in this show, because this show doesn't understand pacing either. It'll take its slow-ass time going through all the camp activities, but it'll rush through scenes like this. But then the rest of the episode is so dragged out because we take forever before they actually fight Medusa. And By the way, they took out any shred of competence Grover had in the book, because when they fight her in some underground basement or something where she has a shitload of statues that I thought was the underworld when it was shown in the trailer, Grover puts on the shoes, kind of disappears for a few minutes, and then this is what angered me the most, and because they censor Percy cutting off her head. What they do is have Grover fly in and crash, distracting her. Yeah, again, him fighting off Medusa with a stick, with his eyes closed, going purely off his sense of smell. That's not here. He's just a bumbling idiot. He's the Jar Jar Binks of this group. Annabeth puts her invisibility cap on Medusa, and then Percy cuts nothing. Because Disney is so fucking overly sanitized that even the PG movies from 2010, when PG wasn't really pushed to its limits like it is today, actually showed him cutting off her head, and you see the severed head several times throughout the movie. Here, he's just swinging at air. They just have the actor swinging at air. And by the way, Medusa's effects, you can tell they're bad because one, it just looks like she's wearing a yarn wig, and two, you only see it like twice. You see maybe one snake kind of slithering on her hair a little bit, but that's it. It looks so cheap. You can tell which of the adaptations was proud of how their Medusa looked, and which one was fucking ashamed to show it. Because the movie showed the hair and Medusa a lot because it was a good effect and they were proud of it. Here, Disney is fucking ashamed of their CGI. Same thing happened with the Minotaur with them trying to hide it in the dark, which ironically makes CGI look worse. Yeah, a lot of people don't know this, and I've brought it up several times before, that putting CGI in the dark makes it look way worse. And then we get something else that's completely fucked up. You remember how Grover told Percy that his mother was alive, which was kind of a spit in the face of the book? Percy tells Grover and Annabeth the prophecy, which he never does in the novel. And it's supposed to be a big character building moment between Percy and Annabeth where they kind of start to trust each other, but you didn't need this. Annabeth wasn't this big of a jackass in the novel, and Percy wasn't this stupid. We get it. They need to work. They understood that even if their parents don't like each other, they don't have to hate each other. They can work together on this without being dicks to one another. But these TV show characters are fucking idiots, and they can't get that through their thick skulls. So, let's just see if I've got this down. Bad design of Medusa, cheating with the special effects, and hiding them in the shadows, and then cheating with the decapitation, unlikable leads, and characters that are completely botched from the novel, really shitty fight scenes, and more fucking exposition. This isn't better than the last two episodes. In fact, this might even be worse, because it wasn't even remotely entertaining. The second episode was still bad, but it was at least slightly more entertaining than the first episode. This one's somewhere dead in between. It's not quite as boring as the first one, but it is it's just dull, and it's like ashamed to show anything cool because they don't have the fucking budget for it. Oh, is this really only episode 3? God. And again, this episode was so dragged out because he's trying his damnedest to fit every little detail, even though he's failing miserably at that, might I add. Argus, nowhere to be found. They just take a cab into the city to take a bus. I don't know why they didn't just take the bus in the first place. And so, what's next? The next one's going to be the St. Louis Arch, probably. And then we'll have, so there's 5 episodes left, though. It'll be the St. Louis Arch, then it'll be the Lotus Casino. Lotus Casino really only going to be episode 4, or is there going to be some filler episode in between? Because there will be probably 2 episodes in the Underworld then. The fight with Ares, and then the finale. That's my guess, and good God, this is dragged out as fuck. So that's all I got, and I hate this show so much. But yeah, see y'all next time. Bye.